I don't care.
That's what Sonny said.
That's fine. That works for me.
Because he still has a learning curve when he comes in learning all that.
I just appreciate your leadership.
Somebody has to make a motion.
Yep. And I'll support it.
Somebody's got to get off. Somebody's got to get off that center. We either going to go with them or we're not going to go with them.
All right, we'll get started here in just about a minute. That clock is a little slow, and I wasn't paying attention to what Mickey was telling me.
That's why we have over.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that clock is like us, a little slow.
I'm still.
What are we signing?
Just a thank you to American.
Oh, yes.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Grand Traverse County Public Health and Safety Committee. The only thing I'd like to remind everyone is that this, of course, is a public meeting, but I would ask that you turn your cell phones either on silent or on vibrate. And all of us, when we stand up, we'll make sure we do that too. So we'll start by the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Becky, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gilman,
Here.
Inman,
Here.
Henschel,
Yes.
Lemkool,
Yes.
Richardson,
Here.
Thomas,
Here.
Max Bauer,
Here.
Fleece,
Present.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am. All right, that brings us to approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from April 4th, regular session?
Move for approval for the April 4th, 2012 regular minutes.
Second.
Motion by Inman, supported by Henschel. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. This brings us to the first opportunity for public comment. We have 2 public comment sessions in our agenda this evening, and we also generally will take public comment during the discussion of an agenda item that the commissioners are partaking in. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment at this time? You can come up, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Heidi Sheffy, 1904 Knollview Drive. I'm just taking a moment to introduce myself. I pretty much have worked with or know everyone here. I'm Deputy Finance Director, but I'm announcing that I'm running for treasurer for Grand Traverse County. And I just wanted to take a minute. I was born and raised here in Traverse City. I have a bachelor's from Lake Superior State, master's from Davenport, and I'm a certified public finance officer from the GFOA. I've worked as Deputy Finance Director under Dean for the last 8 years. I've been preparing the financial statements. I've been down in the treasurer's office. I have a good working understanding of the office, and I feel I do a good job as the treasurer. And with the tuition reimbursement program, the county contributed to my degrees and certifications, so I'd kind of like to give back and put it in use in the county.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to make comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward with the approval of the agenda. I would like to add, the sheriff has asked that we sign a proclamation for National Police Week for 2012, and that will be the week of May 13th. So when we get to that under the new item, I will pass around that proclamation.
Under new business?
You want that?
Under new business, please. Are there any other additions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Max Bauer, supported by Fleece. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. This brings us to, we have no special orders of business this evening, so this brings us to the consent calendar. Jackie, will you read the consent calendar, please?
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. Receive and file. 1. Community Collaborative March/April Coordinators Report. 2. Animal Control Program Activities. Approval. 1. Property Room Surplus Request. 2. Commission on Aging Monthly Report. A. Endowment Grant Acceptance. B. Fee Increases. 3. Fiscal year 2011-2012 Child and Adolescent Health Center Contract, Youth Health and Wellness Center Amendment Number 1. 4. Fiscal year 2011-2012 Child and Adolescent Health Center Contract Kingsley Clinic Amendment Number 1.
You've heard the consent calendar. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to have any of these items removed? Any member of the commission? Ross?
Yes, item B2B. That was 2B, Ross?
Larry?
2B, yes.
A2.
Just item what now?
A2, he said.
A2, okay.
Any other items? I'd entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar with the exception of items A2 and B2B.
Make that motion.
So moved.
Motion by Gilman, supported by Fleece. Further discussion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Roll call vote, I'm sorry. Yeah. Trying to move along.
Commissioner
We
Inman?
all have work to do.
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Fleece?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Chairman Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, items removed from the consent calendar. The first one would be pulled by Commissioner Fleece. That's the Animal Control Program activities. Larry, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, Jerry.
Good evening.
If you could identify yourself, please.
Jerry Pugh, Finance Director, Grand Traverse County Health Department, Acting Health Officer.
I'd like to thank you for the update on the summary you presented. But the question I have is, when do you think there might be some finality in the issue? Because I would absolutely like to see some corrective action taken in that area. Corrective action as far as policy and all of that.
Right. Tom has done an excellent job of summarizing activities that he has done so far, which is basically accumulating some of the policies, doing an initial review of those policies, kind of bringing me up to date. Tom and I had a second meeting with Cherryland Humane Society about 2 weeks ago, working towards establishing an agreement with them for taking over the sheltering activities. That's kind of back in my court at this point in time as far as attempting to draft an agreement that would work for Grand Traverse County as well as their organization. And, I think that, there's a good chance that, we'll be able to do that. That being said, I've got a lot on my plate with the new building and some other issues. So if anyone's holding up the process at this point in time, it's myself. So I'm just trying to prioritize my responsibilities as best I can, and I'm hoping that maybe by the time we meet, next month, I'll have something a little more concrete for you.
Yeah, even if, you needed 60 days, I don't think that myself or the board would be, we understand the situation you're in, but
Right.
I just want to make sure that we get it done.
No, I appreciate the importance and just having to deal with issues that come up daily. I mean, I've already been involved in several animal control issues, so, I realize that the sooner that we can clearly identify policies and get, some actions in place that hopefully will clarify what everyone's responsibilities are. I think it's to everyone's benefit, and we need to support the animal control officers so they know exactly what the expectations are of them.
Thank you, Jerry.
I just want to add, Jerry provided a concise summary here on page 8. He did that at my request. The detailed activities that have been done by Jerry and Tom Buss are more extensive than the list here indicates, but I think what's the most encouraging for us, and Jerry has kept me updated on this, and they are, doing what we need to do in this area. It may not be as fast as you would like it to be done, but I think it's very important, and what's promising is the talks that they've had with the Cherryland Humane Society, because if we're able to work out an agreement with them, that will free up, we hope, some personnel time. But Jerry has kept me up to speed on this, and I'm happy with what they've done to this point, and we will try to bring something back as Jerry had indicated. So,
Ross?
Jerry, have there been discussions about staffing, or whether, the staffing we have in animal control is sufficient, or ways to resolve it if it's not?
We have not, no, we have not gotten to that point, Commissioner. We're primarily focusing on going through the existing policies and making sure that they're appropriately clear for, all parties involved. That's one of the initial emphasis. And really, as Dean mentioned, if we're able to work something out with the Humane Society, that potentially could put, animal control officers on the road, maybe an additional 8 hours a day between the two officers. So, that's a significant improvement over where we're at now. Also, I'm trying to take advantage of some clerical staff. I've gotten Debbie involved, or she's just getting involved in helping to summarize some of the activities that they're carrying on from complaints and that into an access database, so that it'll provide Tom hopefully a little bit better management tool to be able to see what's going on, in the department.
And these are functions that are being done by the officers themselves right now?
Correct, if
So
they
this- so
even
this will
have
give them-
time.
This will give them more time to be in the field
Exactly,
with clerical support provided elsewhere.
right.
Herb?
I remember when this issue came up a number of years ago, that Leelanau County had quite an interesting ordinance that they had put together, and I wonder if we've copied that ordinance, or if you've looked at it. You might want to try and get that information from them. It just tickles in my brain that that they had a pretty good ordinance back then, so I just thought maybe I ought to touch base with them.
Yeah, and Jess Reed, who's involved with the Cherryland Humane Society, I believe he's mentioned that ordinance to us just in our conversation.
Good. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I'd entertain a motion to accept and receive and file the Animal Control Officer report.
So moved.
Support?
Motion by Fleece, supported by Richardson. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Commissioner Richardson, you pulled the fee increases for the Commission on Aging.
Yeah, first of all, let me say that I was surprised that they were in there on the consent calendar, and if you look at, there's obviously a lot of information here, but then if you look at the end of it, it doesn't say anywhere that we needed to approve them, but I did call Georgia Durga, actually yesterday, and she said that upon review, Bob Cooney, our legal counsel, said that in this situation, not just this situation, but in general, changes in fee structures need to be approved by the county commission. And I'm concerned because some of the increases in fees are rather large. For instance, the increase in fees, the hourly fees for the lowest income grouping, which are people basically who make less than $900 a month, is like a 248% increase in the hourly fee, from $1.15 an hour up to $4 an hour. And I believe if we're going to have to approve this or review it, that we need a little more time. And the motion I would like to make is that we defer this to Public Health and Safety in June, where hopefully we'll have a little more information and can have a little better discussion about it than I think most of us are prepared to have tonight.
I'll support that.
Motion by Richardson, supported by Fleece, to table the fee increases by the Commission on Aging. Further discussion? Larry?
Yeah, I just as a viewpoint, and I did get a couple calls at home on this from some seniors that were surprised that we would be considering an increase in fees for services for the senior public. And I guess from just my perspective, I think we need to have perhaps a better synopsis of this thing because I believe they just, as of last year, I can't remember the election date, but it wasn't that long ago, that they had approved the new millage renewal, and I believe did that include a Headley rollback? I believe it did. Yeah, so in essence, they received more money by virtue of the Headley rollback than the actual renewal of the millage. So I think it would just look odd for the Commission on Aging to go out for a millage and actually gain more in revenue and then come back and suggest that we need to raise fees substantially. And I think it just, it's a tough sell, especially right after the millage. So I think we need to talk about it and look at it a little harder.
Chris?
I did not vote for this. This was passed by the full Commission on Aging Board yesterday, and I was the lone no vote on this for a number of reasons. I would like to suggest that we sit down with the Commission on Aging Board and talk about these fees and talk about what direction we want to go or what direction we would like the Commission on Aging Board to go. We do have a budget shortfall, and it does have to be addressed. I don't believe increasing fees 250% in some instances here is the way to go. I think there's a better way. I said so yesterday, and I still believe that to be true. So I don't know what everyone else feels, but
Jason?
I would like the two boards to sit down.
I don't know if I'd want to have a full board. I think it'd be sufficient to have an appropriate mix of our board. Perhaps Chairman Inman, Commissioner Richardson, and just a proper mix, maybe Commissioner Henschel, if they were to.
And me?
Well, you would be there as part of that board anyway, so I think that you would be there.
Well, yes, I do want to be there.
Right, no.
See, I took a week off,
but
and this happened while I was gone. And I'm coming back to this.
But my point is, and then bring a recommendation back to the board for this, and then I think bringing it back in June is probably an appropriate thing to do. There was also another, there was a note in our boxes, an anonymous note with a couple of suggestions on some different ways to approach this too, that I think may or may not be appropriate, but I think it'd be worth talking about. And I'd like to have more time to look at this and perhaps get some feedback from a meeting that could happen between now and June.
Good suggestion.
Herb?
I think this goes right along with the garage that we had a challenge with a number of years ago as to whether or not they're going to expand the garage. And we asked for a joint meeting to be able to figure out how to resolve the issue. this is almost as bad, as right up there, ranks up there with that point. My other comment was, what happens after 2 days of snow? You have Monday. We're not providing services on the weekend for our clients. And that, to me, is a challenge. When we have snow on the weekend and they can't get out, we need to provide those services. I personally cannot support a fee increase. We've got a millage dollars. Those millage dollars are supposed to take care of the needs of our community. Trying to do a fee increase at this time, I think, is wrong. And I would hope that you take that back to the commission and say, we will not support a fee increase. Figure out how to do it some other way.
Larry?
I too received some calls today, and one of them happened to be from a constituent in Commissioner Maxbauer's area. And I've spoke to her before on another issue, but her main issue was she's on a fixed income, and it's a pretty good income. And she pays, it would be the fourth from the top, or next to the bottom. And for example, on Homemaker Aid program, it would go from $16.10 to $22. She said, that doesn't seem like much, but you know, it would put me over the top. And I, before, well, 4 years ago, she said, she went to the Commission on Aging. She said, but you know, I used to be able to afford 3 hours of cleaning with a private firm. She said, and if this increase passes as it's proposed, I'm going to have to go back to private enterprise because I can't afford this. I can squeak out an hour some months, other months maybe an hour and a half, depending on my income. And she says, when my kids come, they live out of town, she says, I like to have my house nice, and they come twice a year. But she was really concerned, and I thought she brought up some valid points, and she said, you know, the Commission on Aging Board needs to think about this because they're pricing themselves out of the market. Particularly, I think, and Ross brought up a good issue, a 248% increase on the bottom end. I don't understand, I understand the numbers, but, you know, going from $1.15 to $4 to some people is a make or break issue, period. And people that don't have the luxury of using private enterprise, they're stuck with what we get. And Commissioner Lemkool makes a good point. It does snow on weekends. And if we're providing snow removal services, perhaps we ought to figure out a way to at least help some of them, or the ones that need the help to get out on the weekends. But I'm 100% in favor of looking at this in a month, and hopefully the constituency of the Commission on Aging would contact the Commission on Aging or attend their board meeting and offer them some input on this matter because I think it's an important issue.
Ross?
And I want to make clear that I'm not trying to pick on the Commission on Aging because, I mean, I understand they're in a difficult situation here. They do have a revenue shortfall based on the estimates that were made last year, and there are a lot of fingerprints on that number, including, unfortunately, county administration, which evidently didn't review the numbers that were submitted in the budget. So a budget was submitted, and we just basically passed it through without looking at some numbers that were, you know, maybe not real reasonable. But I do think it's a good idea that we try to, you know, work with the Commission on Aging and find a way to resolve this to, you know, to everyone's benefit. And getting back to Larry's comment about it was in August of 2010 that the millage was renewed, and it was renewed by a 4-to-1 margin. So 80% of the people who voted for the new millage. So obviously there's a great deal of community support for what COA is doing. We just have to make sure that, you know, we can provide the services.
Jason?
I just wanted to touch on something that Commissioner Fleece mentioned. When he talks about pricing out of the market, the concern isn't so much that these folks can't afford it. It's just that they'd be going to the private sector, which is, in my view, I think you go to the private sector, that's a great place. However, if the idea is to raise income so that the rest of those services can be properly subsidized, well, let's use an analogy. There's another agency that we're kind of responsible for, but not really. We can't really make any decision, and that'd be the septic situation. And they talk about raising the septic rates to a point where people just stop pumping their tanks. And then it doesn't solve anything. There's no flow, of cash there either. So these are things that have to be considered, and I think that I'd be careful about jumping into a price change. If I'm the Commission on Aging, I think I'd be careful about it until it's thought through a little bit more, and maybe some of the other ideas that are presented for perhaps the voucher system that was mentioned in a particular letter. If that was used, that might provide a solution. Maybe there's a hybrid solution that might work, but it'd be good to have maybe a little bit of meeting of the minds first before we go and approve it generally.
Larry?
The lady's name that I was mentioning is named Sharon Cope, and she invited me to use her name, and she said something that really surprised me, and she talked to me quite a while, probably a half hour. But she said she would much rather pay a little higher millage than to have the fees increased like this. And I don't know what the projection is for the property values coming back so that the millage produces even more money. Apparently, the monies that it was anticipated it would raise, but I agree with Gilman that we definitely have to look at this, and I think the board should try and find some way to get around it.
Other comments? Okay, a couple comments that I would have. First, I was pretty dumbfounded to see that the proposed fee increase would raise $352,000 in 2013. That's a whole bunch of money. Ross, you're absolutely right. 80% of our community supported the millage in 2010 because we absolutely believe it's important that we provide service to our seniors. The confusing part about reading this packet thing is there's nothing in here that tells me what the current charges are. It tells me what the proposed charges are. If I'm going to try to read this and see how it's going to affect people, I need to know how much that increase is, not just that, and foot care clinics is going to raise 2.5 times for a $12,000 increase. How much money per patient or client is that actually in fact costing my client? Because, I believe this community overwhelmingly supports services to the seniors, but I do oppose particularly an increase of this size. Fee increases in this economy are not a great thing for people on fixed incomes, absolutely, but I do understand that, fees have to be collected to pay the service. But we really have to go back and look at each one of these services, how many people we're serving, and how it's going to affect them. Because these services are provided for one purpose, and that's to serve the seniors in our community. And if we make it so the seniors in our community cannot afford those services, we might as well get rid of the Commission on Aging. All right, I believe...
We have a motion.
Ralph, you want to make a comment?
I didn't put a tie on for you guys tonight.
So did I.
Ross, I'm glad you brought up about the shortfall. It was $320,000. We found out about it in February. It was not expected. We did a budget based on the fact that, and we did pretty well, even though we knew we would probably have a slight reduction because, like this year, I think we got $6,000 that Dean gave us a number this year, going to be about $6,000. It sounds like deja vu. Everything you've talked about, we've talked about. Okay, we're not talking about, when we talk about increasing the prices, we're saying to exist what we're doing, we have to increase those prices. We've talked about the people who can't afford it, the ones you're talking about, Larry, that may be down at the bottom that had $1 and they got to pay $4. We're trying to establish I don't know what you would call kind of a scholarship so that we can take care of some of those people. but a number of the people can afford that. You know, I don't know where you can get service in your home for $4 an hour. But, you know, it's either that. The easiest thing to do is you to give us the $320,000, and you'll solve our problem.
Thanks.
And that's all we're asking for. But, you know, to say, and we've gone over this and over this and over this. We had some other alternatives that we've talked about. You know, we're not just put this thing to sleep and see that's the end of it. We're talking about some other things we possibly may do. We're looking outside the box, contracting, you know, us contracting with some organizations, looking at the best way that we could possibly do this without cutting out a whole series like not unsolicited, but the unsigned letter you got. You know, just do away with those practices, okay? Well, there's a number of people that, you know, that find it necessary. They're old enough, they can't cut their own grass, you know. They can't do the snow plowing. They can't do those things, you know. And so we're trying to do what very best that we can do to serve the seniors of this community. And I welcome you to be there. It's too bad that Christine wasn't there for that week, because that was a heavy week. That was the week that we did a lot of discussions. This just didn't go through finance. This went through 3 or 4 other committees before, you know, also that when we looked at and trying to do some things and so on. So we spent a lot of time on this, and we're looking at say, well, this gives us kind of a breather. We've got this year to deal with, or not this year, because we paid the $320,000 back to the county that, for our budget. We paid that out of our contingency fund. We had enough money put away, we were able to do that. But that's going to last us a couple of years. We've got to do something for the future, and that's what we're looking at, and spending a lot of time on it, and not just saying, well, here it is, folks, and this is going to solve our problem. That's not the case. If we do cut programs, remember one thing. We go out to the people for a vote, and when you cut programs, they remember that too, depending on who you cut and what the program is. You know, so we're kind of trying to stay away from that as much as we possibly can, give the best service we possibly can to the people that we serve, and that's the senior citizens. You know, fortunately, I'm in a position where I don't need that yet. You know, but you keep raising my taxes, I may. But I want you to understand that I think the idea of you working with us on is fine, but you didn't have all the information. And I don't know why you didn't have the prices. We sent them to you. Not to you, son. But we did send them in.
At very minimum, I have to have a sliding scale exactly like the one that I've got here that shows what the current price is. Because I'm not going to even consider having a vote on these fees unless I know what the change is from what we're currently charging.
Well, you should have. We sent that in, the basic change and where we're going with that. But more than happy to sit down and work with you. One big thing I would like to caution you on is that we take care of this pretty quick, because I suspect that Dean's going to want to have that the budget information in pretty quick, and we're doing our budget. It's got to be in July, so that cuts us pretty short. So I'm hoping that you'll have the time to spend with us. I know all our committees will spend the time with you. To spend time with us so that we can get this thing nailed down. You can get all the information, and maybe you'll have some wise answers for us and solve this problem. I still think the best one is to give us the 320.
I do apologize. I do have the 2012. It's just with a section in between that part and the next part. So mine got stapled out of order. So.
Well, that's okay. I forgive you.
Yeah, well, somebody better.
Thanks, Ralph.
Any other comment?
Can the motion be repeated, please?
Jackie, will you read the motion?
The motion is to defer the fee increases for Commission on Aging to the June Public Health and Safety meeting.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
do you want to set up a committee to sit down with the Commission on Aging Committee and take a look at this?
What's the board's pleasure?
I think it's a good idea.
I think Gilman's idea is pretty
committee,
good.
you want to do it as a committee of the whole?
It's up to you.
I think we need to do it at committee of the whole.
I'm going to ask staff to
Special meeting.
work to try to schedule a joint meeting with the County Board of Commissioners with the Grand Traverse County Commission on Aging as soon as possible. I do believe it's a discussion that we all need to partake in.
Okay, that's fine.
So we will direct staff to do that tomorrow. Okay?
Good.
Any other questions in that regard?
Nope. Yes, sir.
All right. That brings us to, okay. That takes care of the consent calendar. The next item of business is the Circuit Court and the IT Department. I see Judge Power found his sidekick this evening. You can't believe how much wrath you got last week, Don. I'm telling you, you were in real deep trouble. I hope you don't go to court anytime soon, because he won't forget.
I did watch some of that on TV, Don.
As he was peeling down the chair.
That's great.
Just request that you go in front of Judge Powers, or Judge
Yeah. There you go.
You'll do a lot.
Well, hopefully I'm never there.
Nothing to it.
Well, I think, presented the basic problem that we were facing at two previous meetings, and I think you have a pretty good idea of what we're dealing with. The 1 week delay was probably turned out to be a good thing. First, Don got to be involved. We went through the list, and I think refined it, so it's better to find what we're going to use this resource for, because it is an expensive resource, and we want to make good use of it and get as much done as we can, and maybe not even spend all the money. That'd be ideal. So I think it was worthwhile. In terms of paying for this, it's $19,800 is their maximum. They estimate that will, in fact, cover this list. In addition, there is travel time and travel expenses, so I think we're probably looking at 22 or something along those lines as the top end. Where do we pay for that? To review again, in the e-file program, each time there is a filing, the filer pays an $8 fee, and for reasons I discussed last time, it's actually a bargain for the law firms. It saves them time and money and effort that I think is more than the $8. But of that $8, ImageSoft keeps $4. That's their payment for setting up the e-file system. And the other $4 goes to Grand Traverse County. And based on the first 3 months of filings, and remember, we're only doing some of the civil caseload, the so-called N and C cases, which is basically personal injury cases and contract cases, are being done this way. And even with those limited filings, that we're generating on the order of $2,000 or maybe $2,500 in the per month, the first couple months. If once we get this done, we are in a position to expand to do this with the rest of the civil caseload, and we'll get, I don't know, it's hard to guess, I would say conservatively maybe double that. So that's an income stream that will help the county. In addition, I filched off Judge Rogers' desk when he was gone. I think I shared it with you last time. He has this handy-dandy list of the amount of money that the circuit court has turned back at the end of each budget year for the last several years. And I think I shared this with you last time. And this is how much that was budgeted that did not get spent. You add up all the line items, the ones that the net unspent amount. Last year was the smallest amount, was 70,000 something. In 2010, it was 106,000. 2009, 86,000. 2008, it was 80,000 that was not spent. 2007 was 178,000, and 2006 was 93,000. You can never be sure that that's going to happen again, because as we discussed, it takes one really expensive public case to go through that and more. But I think we do have a track record of turning back substantial sums. I think there's going to be money there. So that's basically what we're planning. I believe Bob Cooney's had an opportunity to review the contract and is satisfied, and so I would urge your consideration. Any questions you have, I know Don and I'd be happy to answer them.
Larry?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the contract for statement of work with ImageSoft in the amount of $19,800 plus associated travel costs, and it's believed the overall cost would be in the neighborhood of $22,000.
Second.
And the funds being available in the circuit court budget.
Motion by Fleece, second by Henschel. Further discussion. Ross?
Well, first of all, you mean not to exceed the 19.8, right?
Well, not to exceed 19.8 in the contract, but
plus
then
the travel.
we- Yeah, plus the travel.
Yeah. Dean, did you have some thoughts on how we could?
Well, I would be very comfortable with, we're going to have IT incur the cost and then bill it back to the circuit court, and with the amount that you've already appropriated for circuit court, I have no doubt we'll be able to cover that.
Herb?
Yeah, Dean, last week when you were here, 2 weeks ago, I guess you were here, I asked about, what is the total cost of being able to provide document imaging for all the courts and but particularly the courts? And are you going to be putting that in next year's budget? Are you going to be presenting that kind of a process to us in the future? Because I really think that this is a critical piece, and and even during all the interviews of it that we talked about to all administrators that we were interviewing, that was my question. Have you had any experience in document imaging, and where do you think we ought to go with it? I mean, every one of them, I think, really supports the fact that we need to go there because that's the only way we're going to keep up with the technology, and we're going to be able to recoup our cost, because it's not going to take our people as long to be able to review a document as it goes through. So I'd like to see us have some sort of a ballpark idea of what it would cost to do the whole courts, but also what it would take to do the whole county. So that when we get into it, do we start planning this out on a 5-year plan so that we can take and get ourselves to that point? Stop looking at today. Stop looking at, well, we got this problem today, now how are we going to fix it? Let's look to the future and figure out how do we plan for it.
Yeah, Don's been practicing writing numbers that big.
Well, we got to know what they are.
Yeah, I was going to put something together, but I have not done that yet.
Okay.
So, we can do that as part of the budget cycle, though, and I don't know if I'd be able to come up with everything, but we do at least know software licensing, what we've paid for services in the past, and also what we're doing from a support standpoint, so the personnel involved in supporting the applications.
And would document imaging, would ImageSoft be able to help us to be able to get there, and what would it cost, what do they think the cost might be to be able to get there too?
All right.
Jason?
Given our attorney's memo, is this something that we're going to be, then we're going to approve this now and it's still going to come before the end of the month, or are we applying this immediately?
Based on Bob Cooney's item that everyone should have, you can approve this tonight, and it still, as a formality, goes to the board meeting later in the month, but the chair can sign this based on your action tonight.
Yeah, if you want to.
And that's what we're looking for here. We want to get going on this.
Get it going, get the cash flowing.
So this would be a ratification vote, Mr. Chairman?
Then he should make the motion reflect that.
Right. The motion will reflect that we authorize the chairman to sign the contract as soon as possible, as soon as it's available. I guess the only question I had, Don, I'm sorry if someone else was too. Don, does this scope of work bring us up to speed? I was concerned whether, the scope is a little hard for me to figure out exactly what they're doing as it's written here. So I was just trying to make sure, does this scope of work actually get us to where we need to be?
It's going to
Or should we be talking about, doing something more?
Yeah, this is going to finish, everything that we've run into as we were going through the initial implementation, and we're also looking, it is a not-to-exceed number, but there are some domestic, they're already scanning those, they're already in the system, and so some of those, we feel, and basically they are on the list, we want to make sure the vendor's fully clear that they're there, but that they should be able to make sure that all of those are situated also.
And I do think it's important to note that we believe this will pretty much take care of the civil e-filing and document management. If we go to criminal, which we would like to, that is not necessarily going to be resolved by this amount, and that will be a different issue. And criminal is a little more difficult because the revenue stream really isn't there. On the prosecutor's side, when they file documents, whether we don't charge them anything and then pay ImageSoft $4 out of the circuit court, or whether we charge them something and then pay ImageSoft and $4 goes to the county, you're still paying for it because the prosecutor's office. The defense side, the vast majority of cases are indigent defense lawyers, and we're obviously, to the extent we charge them, they're obviously going to have to be reimbursed by the county for that, by each of the counties, whichever county they're in, because that's a county-specific expense. So, but that's this. I don't want you to think that this gets the criminal part of it done, for efficiency reasons, there's good reason to do that, but it's not going to be a moneymaker.
Ross?
That sort of leads into my question. So with this extra contract, that will allow us to include all the civil types of cases?
That's my belief, yes.
Don, do you agree with that?
I believe we will be there, yes. I mean, Linda's also in my office working on these, and they were listed in there. There might be a little bit more clarification for them, but I feel, yes, it will get us there.
And how much was the contract, the original contract for the circuit
I am not
court
good at
project?
remembering those numbers. Do you recall, Dean?
I would rather provide you with that. I don't know either.
Okay, I mean, we are talking.
Yeah, I believe it was over $100,000.
I was going to guess, I think it was 110,000.
Okay.
The overall contract for what?
For the circuit
the
court
workflow and-
implementation.
Was it that much?
I think so.
I remember it being a lot smaller, but, you know,
Well, if we're spending
I'm not the one,
$20,000.
I'm not the one who has to vote for higher
Right,
taxes.
but that included more than just the services. That was all of the software and the scanners and
Oh,
the
okay.
hardware.
No, I understand that.
And it also included the other two counties where we're implementing out software within the other two counties too.
So the $4 per e-file that goes to ImageSoft, does that go on for, what, the length of the contract?
Yeah, and you see the advantage of this, we did not have to pay ImageSoft anything to start e-file. Remember, as I explained, there's two parts to this. There's filing the documents and getting them in the court file and served on the parties. That's called e-file. And then the second part is managing these electronic documents in the county system, in the court system. So from the clerk's office to the court and management within the court to scheduling to collections to domestic relations to mediation, all around that. And then the friend of the court's office, when it comes to domestic, getting there involved, they've already got imaging pretty well under control because, as you probably are aware, they've been doing this for several years, as has parts of the prosecutor's office. And so the document management part of it is the problem we've had, and we've had to pay for that, and there was a contract. Now, I don't recall it being in six figures, but I could be wrong. But the e-file part of it, we got a great deal on because we didn't pay them a dime up front, and they're getting paid for getting that e-file system set up by keeping $4 for each filing. We got it essentially for free, and we get $4 for each county, whichever county it's filed in. So it actually, we had an excellent deal, and Judge Rogers, I think, is really has to be given the credit for negotiating that. He saw that the ImageSoft wanted to be a statewide vendor, and we were going to be the guinea pig to show what a great job, and they've been, and I have to tell you, they've been very good. I have no beefs with the way our contractor has done things. They've been cooperative pretty much at every turn.
Well, and that collection fee pays for continuing enhancements, which they are continuing to enhance that system. Plus, they're responsible for, I mean, it really is a cloud application. They're hosting all of the servers, and that is their responsibility fully to get the documents to us and to handle that e-file system.
Any other comments? I guess the only other final comment that I would have is, I've heard nothing but good comments in regard to the electronic imaging. I think we're all in agreement that it's been a great asset to our community and to our county. We do have a little glitch along the way trying to physically get it all to happen. $19,000 is a pretty cheap cost when we're looking at the investment that we've got to ensure that it works properly. Further comments? I do want to thank Don and Judge for their work, and Judge Rogers, who also is not here, because I know that they've spent a lot of time putting this together for us.
And Judge Rogers, he's coming back, I think, tomorrow. He married off his son.
Cool.
And that's where he was taking care of more important business, but he's really been the tip of the spear in terms of getting this done, and I'm just sort of sitting in for him. I also want to thank the commission for the support, but also I want to thank you for the time you've given us, because this is part of a third meeting that you've taken to listen to our situation and to assist us, and we appreciate it.
If there's no other comments, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank
And Larry will sign that contract, and Dean will see that it's forwarded to ImageSoft.
Point of order, should that have been a voice vote before, instead of a
Spending money.
Didn't
or a roll call vote? I'm just asking, I don't,
You can do the roll.
Spending money,
we're spending money,
We
so I just,
probably should roll
Yeah,
call vote.
so
it.
you do a roll call, I think.
Yeah.
It
Okay,
has to be ratified at the end of the month, so.
No, we're
But we're
doing
doing a meeting.
ratification now.
We're doing
supporting
the action,
ratification.
so.
All right.
okay, Commissioner Henschel,
Yes.
Lemkool.
Yes.
Richardson,
yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Flees,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Chairman Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am. Greg, you're next.
Good evening. My name's Greg Pathos. I'm the CEO at Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, 105 Hall Street, Traverse City. And I'm joined by Melissa Fournier, who's our board chairperson and a resident of Grand Traverse County, appointed by the commission. So, in your packet on pages 52 and 57 are two documents. One is the 2010 Commissioner Survey, which was completed by county commissioners from across our 6 counties. This is a survey that we complete on an annual basis, and it becomes a key part of our annual agency performance evaluation. So you can see how the report is laid out, and including a trend across the years that has been done. You also should have a copy of the survey for this year, provided hopefully in advance. If not, I have clean copies of the survey, and I have self-addressed stamped return envelopes to hopefully encourage all of you to complete the survey. We understand that community mental health is at times a difficult organization to understand, and certainly we learn a lot from commissioner surveys, not only those that are good, but also those where there are questions about what it is we do, and certainly where there's disagreements at times about the services that we provide. So we always simply want honest feedback that helps us guide our practices. So we'd really encourage you to do that, and certainly we can answer questions, Melissa or I, about that issue. It didn't make it into the packet, I don't think, but previously we had also sent two resolutions, one in regards to mental health courts and one in regards to the jail inmate exception. And I just want to speak briefly to those, if you can't recall those. The mental health court resolution is very important because we have one of 8 pilots in the state of Michigan here in Grand Traverse County for a mental health court initiative. It's doing a phenomenal job. So the resolution was developed and approved by our board and sent to elected officials, and I've had a chance to meet with Senator Walker and others, advocating that the state of Michigan find funds to sustain the mental health court pilots. So in his executive budget, Governor Snyder has recommended the funding of the 8 mental health court pilots and an additional mental health court in Saginaw. The House has approved that in its budget, and the Senate, we believe, is going to support that as well. Our hope is that our local elected officials will affirm that as well, so that we have sustainability of the mental health court here in Grand Traverse County. The other resolution speaks to this elusive concept of jail inmate Medicaid exception. So in Michigan, people who have Medicaid do not have to have their Medicaid benefits eliminated when they're incarcerated in a county jail. They can be suspended. By policy, in the state of Michigan, too often people are disenrolled from Medicaid, which means that when an inmate leaves the county jail for more than 24 hours, their eligibility for Medicaid should be there to cover health care costs should they be receiving services, for example, if they're admitted to Munson Medical Center. So the Resolution 1 encourages the state of Michigan to suspend and not disenroll. The other part of this, and it's tied to the Affordable Care Act, is that by federal law, people don't lose their Medicaid benefits when they're arrested, it's when they're adjudicated. So if a person's in a county jail, they have not gone to trial, they should have the ability to have full Medicaid benefits during the time they're in the jail until they're adjudicated and convicted. So I know Rob, when he was at the national conference, had a chance to speak with one of the National Council persons, and this is an issue that's of great importance not only locally, we see it as an important issue, financial issue to the counties, and also a means to access health care during that time. So those two resolutions were for that purpose. I'm also hoping maybe in July, if I can have more time on agenda to speak a little bit about what are going to be some massive changes to the healthcare system, including the public mental health system. And if you've heard a bit about the state's plans to move to a managed care system for people with dual eligibility, people who have Medicaid and Medicare benefits, that is, I was reading a Senate fiscal analysis the other day that said it will be the biggest change in 40 years in terms of health care services in Michigan. So the state of Michigan has submitted that plan to the federal government, and there's a 30-day period for review. That would certainly impact Northern Lakes because it further regionalizes the state of Michigan and changes how funding flows. There's obviously a lot of issues tied to the Affordable Care Act, and we'll know that in June in terms of what the Supreme Court speaks to that. And would also like the chance to chat a little bit about integrated health care and to present our annual report. But I also, if your agenda allows time, if there are questions that you have towards Melissa or myself on any issues of concern or comments, we'd welcome to receive those as well.
Jason?
With regard to the Affordable Health Care Act, when it's struck down as unconstitutional, will you have found yourself wondering why you've wasted a lot of time?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's going to think about that. Yeah, a lot of people believe that will be the results of the Supreme Court decision. You know, there has been tremendous effort across the country, and in fact, there's probably been some changes that people think are very positive in regards to issues such as people up to age 26 being covered on parental insurances and so forth. There are other areas that there's such strong disagreement. So much of what we're asked to deal with right now is going to depend on that decision. And I think most people are saying it's going to be struck down in its entirety, or maybe pieces will be struck down. So we don't have any control over that decision. So this dual eligible stuff and integrated health care is going to go through regardless of that decision.
Other comments? Bert?
I have a question. What are your hours for treatment purposes of your clients presently?
Well, you know, we operate a 24/7 emergency service program. We certainly have services such as the Assertive Community Treatment Team, which is a 24/7 program as well. The majority of our hours, though, in Traverse City are 8 to 5, other than our residential programs. 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
You have a
And what
contract
about
with third
after-
level.
Third level is a contract agency, part of our emergency services system, which is 24/7, 7 days a week.
What about after 5 and on the weekends?
You know, we don't have routine office hours, but we do see people based upon their plan of service and based upon their acuity status. So if I was serving somebody and they had a need for services on a weekend, we would make availability to serve them, but we don't advertise routine office hours for people just to come in 24/7, 7 days a week.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, is there a reason for that? Certainly, funding is a big issue to operate a program 24/7. We have, in some of our other counties, we have offered regular hours on Saturday. We have offered evening hours in some communities. One of the reasons we have done that, we here contract children's services, so a lot of our children's services in our other counties are evening. So we'll run evening hours there, where we contract, for example, with Pine Rest and Child and Family Services here, where they do operate evening hours for children's services. The adults we serve, generally people seem to be okay with the 8 to 5 hours. People we serve. Personally, I think it would be better to have broader hours. I think as the expectations of healthcare evolve, we'll see more of that occurring. I think it would be a good idea.
And I wish that you would implement that change. We're still paying almost $750,000 a year.
$683,000 a year.
And,
Right.
You can rattle that off in your sleep, can't you?
you know, it's not, your clients don't have a switch where at 5 o'clock they turn the switch off and they don't require service until 8 a.m. Monday morning. And I would like to see, as a board member, particularly for the amount of money we give mental health, you know, more service for the buck, because I'm quite familiar with some of the street stuff, and you know, when you gotta sit out there on the street and call, and either no one's available or they don't come, and you have the alternative is jail, and that's not the proper alternative. You know, I go way back when the state hospital was still open, and they used to have a 48-hour evaluation. So if you had an individual that was in distress for whatever reason, you took him up there, and they had 48 hours to, you know, examine him. And I realize that's old school, but that was pretty effective. Plus, it helped the patients or the clients, you know. And that's what my goal is to see the people that need it get the help, because as far as my observations, they're the last ones to know they need the help. But thank you.
Yeah,
And
thank you
I'm
for
not
your
picking
comment.
on you for
No,
that, Greg.
Actually, I think we pretty aligned with that opinion.
Herb? Yeah, you know, as part of the survey, you know, I've talked to Greg about this, and I have a letter from one of our members from the Brickways boards, of which I sit on, and they're concerned of the recipient rights office and how it's being handled locally. And it's very adversarial instead of welcoming, and whether or not it's going to be an educational thing. They're really going out and they're trying to tell organizations how to run their organization, or they're going to be subject to other ramifications if they don't do it according to his way. And so I want to give this letter to Greg. I just to let you know that I am giving that letter to Greg. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is that you know, the Foundation for Mental Health provides housing support for a lot of clients, and they're doing just an outstanding job. Emily has just been taking on the responsibility, and she's just been really a great person to be able to come on board. And you guys are in the process of looking at selling your building, or purchasing from the building from the foundation board. And so they're in the process of putting that together. And so it's how do you support the foundation board, because you are supporting them now, and how do you continue that support to be able to continue providing services for your clients so that they do have housing. Housing is the number one. Mm-hmm. Once you get the housing, then you can start doing the support services. And it's a critical piece that once you put a roof over their head, then they can start taking care of other. You can't give them any kind of services if they don't have that roof to begin with. So I just want to compliment the foundation, what a great job they're doing. You know, I do provide one of their clients rental unit, and I've been extremely pleased with the response and how well they take care of their clients and providing a quality house for their people. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Well, I've sat here in this chair for 14 years and repeatedly complained about the quality of mental health service in our jail. You know, and I still believe our mental health services in our jail are still very deficient. They absolutely are. They are not what we had 10 years ago. They're not even close to what we had 20 years ago. But, you know, I understand a lot of it comes down to budget. But, you know, when I look at the contract between Grand Traverse County and Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, I believe that that contract says you are to provide mental health services in our jail, and we are not meeting the mental health needs in our jail. That being said, you know, I certainly give us Great Lakes Mental Health and our court systems an awful lot of credit for the mental health court. I believe it has certainly helped. But, you know, those people that come into our jail, you know, Larry talked about the folks we're picking up on the street, and it's not like the old days when I could call and Kurt Geddes would come out from the state hospital and pick them up and take them down there. I've known Kurt for a long time, and I remember when he and Cheryl used to do that. But that's not the point. The point is we don't have that option anymore. So then the option is to take them to the jail. They don't, you know, many of these people do not handle the whole booking process and all of that well at all, which makes it very difficult for our employees and for your patients. You know, we have long lists of patients that are registered patients of community mental health that are booked into our jail that are not assessed by a mental health professional for extended periods of time. And I think that's wrong. I think when they come into our jail, an assessment should be done, you know, as close to immediately as possible, because keeping them in jail is not helping. It's not helping them, and it's not helping our other employees. That's it. That's not something new.
No.
You've heard me say that repeatedly, so.
And again, I think, Mr. Chairperson, that's something that we also agree on. And, you know, we value very much the funds that you folks provide us, and we truly try very hard to utilize those dollars the very best way we can. And, you know, we have been working with the jail to make improvements within the jail. So hopefully some of those efforts will show themselves in terms of addressing some of the concerns, because, you know, we don't think people with mental health conditions should be in jail either. That there should be diversion programs, and that for those persons who are in jail, that they deserve the same set of services that people receive who aren't in jail. There are some challenges to make that happen, but I have always appreciated your honesty about that.
Any other comments or questions for Greg?
Everybody want to hand in their...
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get mine.
I left mine on my desk, so it'll go
We
in
get that in
tomorrow's
tomorrow?
mail, you know.
Sure.
Okay.
Greg's a reminder to do.
I'll take care. So,
Did Melissa want to say anything?
Just, you know, in terms of passing out the surveys, it would be really nice to have 100% return on these. Any increase from last year's numbers as we go is great. We take these very seriously, and like Greg said, this does become part of the agency evaluation and therefore part of Greg's evaluation. So we appreciate your feedback there. Thanks.
I filled it out about 6:30 this morning, but it's laying on my desk, so.
Do you want another one?
I can get, maybe if you've got an envelope with an address on it, I'll just put it in the mailbox in the morning, because it is all filled out. I just didn't grab it.
I might stay.
I'll take one of those.
As long as you're handing them out.
Are you handing out checks?
There we go.
There we go.
Thanks,
Now we're
Greg.
talking.
You'll get mine via email.
Here's a blank one for somebody.
Okay, this brings us to
Larry,
administration.
Before you go into that, I might say Melissa is one of our appointees, and I think you've been on that board now for 6 years? Yeah, 7 years. And does an excellent job in representing our community, and we appreciate all the work you're doing. Thank you.
This brings us to administration and HR, county administrator search.
Jen, do you want to make a remark? I can start.
Okay, Chris?
I would move the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners offer the position of county administrator to James Getz, and this motion be a full ratification of the Board of Commissioners.
I second that.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Larry?
Mr. Getz would be my second choice, and my first choice would be Dave Benda, based on his 16 years as a county administrator in the state of Michigan, 6 with Clinton and 10 with Midland. And the references and the responses that came back from his employment, both in Clinton County and, more importantly, Midland County, I think as the commission is going to go down in numbers from 9 to 7, there'll be continued challenges in revenue shortfalls, that we need someone with really a strong base of budgeting, which Mr. Benda has, as well as some of the issues that Commissioner Henschel has brought up in terms of looking at new technology that, the feedback from his technology skills appear to be excellent. He does have relationships around the state, being the former chairman of the county administrators organization. So he would be, he could come right in and know who to call and have a relationship with all the county administrators in the state of Michigan. He has certainly a very strong working relationship with the Michigan Association of Counties, had worked with them for 16 years in terms of a number of initiatives, and he does have a very strong relationship and work ethic in terms of not only county operations, but keeping on tap.
Just a point, you're talking about a candidate subject that's not subject to the current motion.
I understand that.
I guess what I'd like to do is hear comments in regard to the motion to hire James Getz.
Yeah, so that's the reason why I will not be voting for that motion.
Larry?
Commissioner Inman, I realize you're the chairman.
Right.
But I intend to be disrespectful.
Okay.
I am really appalled that I would have to pick up the newspaper this morning and read what's in your letter that I received tonight. Right. Plus, I listened to it on the radio today. And I guess I don't understand why the other 8 of us are sitting here when obviously you said you're going to make the motion to make Benda the administrator. Mm-hmm. You're going to start him at $127,000 a year. Well, I don't think you have that power, Mr. Chairman.
No, I don't.
There's 9 of us.
I understand that.
And I don't believe the other 8 may or may not agree with that, and I certainly don't.
I agree.
I think your behavior was really inexcusable. How would you like it when I saw that as vice chair, I've done the same thing? I think that's terrible.
Yeah.
And
well, let me respond to that if I could.
You can when I'm done.
Okay.
I really don't appreciate the attitude you took, and I don't think I've ever been treated that way sitting on a board before, being told in the media exactly what's going to happen tonight and how I'm going to vote.
Are you done?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I apologize if you took it that way. My correspondence with the paper was that I was in favor of Mr. Benda as my top choice. That's what was printed. And with further follow-up, the radio does call from responses to what's printed in the paper. And I just suggested that if I was going to make a recommendation or some kind of motion, I would probably try to start it somewhere where he left Midland County, which I've been corrected this evening before when I got in the room. Mr. Benda did not make 120, whatever that number is, I just crossed it off. But anyway, he made 120, and so I stand corrected on that. So that was, I think any commissioner is entitled to their opinion if the press calls them about who their favorite candidate is, and where they might see the range for that candidate. It's nothing binding, it's just an opinion, and I respect your statement and that's exactly why I felt it was important. Since it did get in the paper, I felt that, I owed you the respect and responsibility of sending something out this morning, letting you know how I felt about the strength of Mr. Benda and some of the things in the current contract that Dennis has that I'd like to change in terms of lowering as something to think about as we go through this process. So I apologize if you took it wrong, but my intent was to just let you know how I felt about Mr. Benda, and if we were going to engage in a discussion about a selection, I would vote for him tonight. And I would also work with you as vice chairman to help put a contract together and really lower the compensation level that we had with Dennis. So that was my only intent, and I apologize if you took it wrong.
Well, we have an HR director, in case you haven't noticed. Her name's Jen Seaman.
Yes.
And
I did meet with her on this.
yeah, but you're a commissioner, she's an employee.
I understand that.
And, I think the policy of the county is that the HR department would certainly have a part, if not all the part, of a negotiation with a proposed employee, and that she would bring the recommendation to us, or staff, her and Dean, would bring it to us, and then we would discuss it. For you to state in the media what the salary's going to be, I think that's, you really stepped on the employees, and I don't think she deserved that. I think she did an excellent job in this whole endeavor, her and Dean both.
I do too. And I'm sorry you took it wrong. My inquiry from her was, what was his ending salary? I just got clarified that it was not 126, it was 120. So that was just a point of information I wanted to give to the commission, and that was my only intent. So. And, I was just going by the way we handled it with Dennis as the chair and vice chair, along with Human Resources, ended up negotiating a point based on the parameters of the board, and they brought it back to the board for approval. So that was just my suggestion of how we could do it again. So,
Commissioner Maxbauer.
Going back to the motion of selecting Mr. Getz, I felt his interview was outstanding. His qualifications are excellent. I think he has the temperament that would be a good fit in Grand Traverse County. He believes in, and stated, he believes in delegation, but accountability. Clearly, from the references that I read, that has been his practice in the past. I think he would serve Grand Traverse County well, and hopefully for a very long time, and that is why he is my top selection and why I made the nomination, and I hope it passes.
Jason?
I'd like to speak to some positives of Jim Getz too, but I'd like to also echo the sentiments by Commissioner Fleece. We've often heard the term half the bay is the view of the bay, or half the pay is the view of the bay, and all that. That is something else that has to be considered when we're talking pay, and I don't want to get too much further into that. I also take a little offense that there are a couple of commissioners in here who are not going to be on this board next year, and we know it, and everybody knows it now. And it seems that it was represented that our views on the administrator's position, as written in the article, that were viewed as irrelevant. Well, certainly we have to work with the administrator for the rest of this year, and we have accountability to our constituents as they are now.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and also, we will still be county residents.
Correct.
So I think that just needs to be pointed out. To Jim Getz. Getz was not my first pick, and I kept some copious notes when we had the discussion of the top three. My top pick, of course, was Naftal. There are people who would disagree with Naftal enough that they'd be very uncomfortable with him being the pick, or a little bit uncomfortable anyhow. There's one person on the board who does not want Jim Getz, okay? One person. The remainder of the board found him acceptable. And I think that should be noted. There's more than a couple people who don't believe that Benda is a good fit, though mechanically qualified. There's no question he's mechanically qualified. He's done all the bits and the pieces, and he's a member of the associations, and he's been a part of this government or that government, and has done all of that. But, you know, we have an opportunity for a fiscally conservative, responsible, as the motion expresses, an opportunity to make an offer to somebody who's, although not my first choice, I find completely acceptable. And I think that 8 out of the 9 of the board find acceptable as well. That speaks, I think, better than a candidate who's got at least 3 people absolutely negative against him. Ross?
First of all, I'd like to echo Commissioner Gilman's comment about the 2 members who aren't going to be on the board next year, because obviously they have responsibility now, as all 9 of us have responsibility for this decision. And whether they're going to be here after January, we don't know if any of us are going to be here after January 1st, quite frankly. So to somehow say that, their opinion doesn't count as much, if that was the intent of the article, I'm not sure it was, but it just didn't strike. It didn't hit me well. Personally, I was impressed with both Getz and Benda, and it seems to be that we're coming down to a choice between Getz and Benda. If this motion goes through, I will probably vote for it. Because, well, I actually went back and I rewatched about half of the Benda interview this afternoon, and I think the man's very talented, but I understood after his interview why there were many times when he had competed for one of these jobs and not actually received them. I think it may have to do with his personality, I'm not sure. But more importantly, what I'm concerned about is that whether we vote for Getz or whether we vote for Benda tonight, I'm afraid it's going to be a 5-4 vote either way. I don't think that's good. I really think that the board, that whoever we hire is going to be more successful if there's a larger proportion of the board, behind them. So what I'm going to suggest, and I know nobody wants to delay the process any more than they've already delayed it, and I've certainly been one of those people saying, let's get this done as quickly as possible. Maybe we should bring back Getz and Benda one more time, do the community meet and greets we were talking about, maybe do some one-on-one interviews, so we all have a better sense of who these people are before we make this very important decision. I'm just throwing that out there for discussion.
Larry? Well, I think we sat with these candidates for 2 hours, and I don't really have any other questions to ask them. And I think that the extensive background that Jen did was sufficient enough for me to understand the feelings of the people that they worked with throughout their career. So I'm relying on those representations. I mean, just to try to observe somebody discussing or meeting someone, I'm not sure I'm going to grab something out of that. So I just soon discuss it now and just try to make a consensus out of it. And hopefully, if it's a 5-4, if it's not a 5-4, if it is a 5-4 vote, that the 4 commissioners on the opposite side would say that they would do their best in terms of receiving him and giving him an opportunity to succeed.
Herb?
Yeah, I'm the commissioner that didn't want him on the list. I felt that, and I've talked to numerous people in our community, that I said, would you want an attorney representing us as an administrator? And the overwhelming response is no. I really feel very strongly that we don't need an attorney trying to micromanage how we're going to wordsmith everything that's going to come out of here. The thing that really put the nail in the coffin for me was the email we received from him. It was a thank you note that was so full of errors and then he had to respond with a second email apologizing, sending out a wrong email. I have a problem if an administrator sends out a wrong email. How's that going to look in our community if that happens again? We can't afford those kind of responses in our community. So I will be voting against this motion.
Ross?
It's interesting because on the one hand, you say we don't need a wordsmith, and then you accuse him of being a bad wordsmith. Actually, Benda, being an English teacher, said during his interview that he was a wordsmith, and he worried about things like those. That's actually one of the positive things in my mind. And Larry Inman, if I can make one more comment. Honestly, one of the reasons it's taken me as long to accept the idea of Benda as it has is because you have been sort of promoting his candidacy all along. I mean,
I don't agree with that.
I would have preferred if we just sort of let it lay and let us draw our own conclusions.
Ross, I have never promoted, I don't even know the person. I've had 2 conversations with him. The first one was 10 years ago, and the second one was during this interview process. During my 16 years at the MAC conference, I've never sat down, had a cup of coffee with him, sat at the table, engaged in any discussion with him. I just know of his reputation and the information provided by Jen from the employees that they contacted. I just feel with his background and his overall experience as a county administrator, he would be our best choice. Honestly, Ross, I have a zero relationship with Benda. We've never talked.
Well, I didn't say you had a relationship with him. I just said that it seemed that you were in favor of his candidacy. And when we had 71 candidates, you were in favor of his candidacy. So.
No, I thought he'd be at the top tier, definitely.
Well, no, I think I agreed. In fact, I think I made the comment that when I first saw his resume, I said he is probably the candidate most like Dennis, and coming from a county most like this one. But
yeah, I agree.
But still, I really tried to approach the whole thing with a very neutral viewpoint. And as some of you know, I actually had somewhat of a some knowledge of Jim Getz because he and my wife are from the same small town in Illinois. So anyway,
just a final comment, Ross. What I tried to zero on is trying to find someone as qualified as Dennis Aloya to come in and run Grand Traverse County, and to me, he was the closest fit with his overall experience. So that's what I was zeroing in on.
Rob?
I hate to put you guys on the spot, but I'd like to ask staff for their impressions as far as professionally any red flags come up, and also have the criminal background checks been completed at this time?
Not entirely, no. We had to, with out-of-state candidates, we have to go county by county by county. These candidates just happen to have a lot of counties, so we're still waiting on a few counties. So far, there are no red flags. Still waiting on. I'm still waiting on, actually, Getz and Benda are not done. NAFTL is 100% done. So, but there are no red flags, and we're at the latter stages. I would say 2 to 3 counties left of Benda and Getz. But the criminal searches nationally and all those things have come back. Jason,
do we have to premise this motion on the outcome, of course?
Contingent upon a successful background check, absolutely. Yeah. I would, absolutely. Which is fine to do. Yeah. Yep.
So would you say within a week we'd be done?
Yeah. Yep.
I'd be in favor, especially considering there seems to be some emotions running a little bit high. We take a week and at our next week's meeting, take the vote. Those are my thoughts.
Good.
Well, I'd like to know how the background checks come out. Personally, after our interviews, I could pick either one of them. I think that Mr. Getz is well qualified, not wild about him being an attorney. On the other hand, what I saw of Mr. Benda, I think he's very well qualified, but the question in my mind is whether he can get along with people. So I wouldn't mind going along until we get the background check.
Ross?
Rob, since you're willing to wait a week, for background checks, do you have any interest in my idea of?
Absolutely. I am wholeheartedly in agreement with you on that.
In bringing them back for
I think getting some more people involved, getting some more impressions, I got to tell you, I teeter back and forth second to second on these guys. It's so close in my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, they both have some great qualities, and, you know, I don't think we can go wrong either way.
I mean, my feeling is, I mean, you know, Larry, you're right, we spent 2 hours each with them, and that was obviously very, very useful, but it was also just one setting, it was just one set of circumstances, maybe, you know, a different setting, we'd get other impressions, or maybe round out the impression.
Other comments? I guess I have just a couple little ones. I believe either one of these gentlemen can meet the needs of Grand Traverse County. I do, you know, and I said before, I believe that in my mind, Benda was the most qualified candidate, and he still in my mind is the most qualified candidate. That being said, you know, I certainly can't support the recommendation that's in this letter that I received earlier in the day for the salary. You know, that salary is open for, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not even going to put a number, even in remote thing with a motion from myself or support a motion. I believe the negotiation for that salary falls to our HR department.
Okay.
It's not our place. You know, once the negotiation's done by her, then we'll have a recommendation for a recommended salary. But, you know, the motion on the floor made by Max Bauer, supported by Gilman, to offer a contract to James Getz as Grand Traverse County Administrator. Is that still the standing motion?
Contingent upon the background checks coming back.
Contingent upon a successful background check.
Yeah.
That's the word you're looking for.
Thank you. I was searching for that. Thank you, Jen.
Any other comments, Larry?
Well, I think they're equally qualified. Benda maybe has more Michigan experience, obviously, but I was really impressed with Gitz as far as his demeanor when he sat at that table. Obviously wasn't nervous. He didn't look at any papers. He answered everything off the top of his head. He left me with a real comfortable feeling. I have to agree with Commissioner Thomas that I wonder if Benda might get along with some people in our community. And maybe it's it's just an impression that he left with me. I think Gitz, there's no doubt, I think he'd get along with everybody, and I will support the motion.
I guess the comment that I made, you know, previously as far as the perception of Mr. Benda's arrogance, or perceived arrogance, would be if I was in a highly competitive situation, interviewing from what was 71 people down to 17, now down to 6, I would do everything in my power to tell you how much better I was than anybody else you looked at. And that's what I seen in the interview process. All right, we have a motion on the floor, we have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Lemkool,
No.
Richardson,
Yes.
Thomas,
No.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Flees,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Inman,
No.
Henschel,
No.
Chairman Wheelock.
No. Motion fails.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners offer the position of County Administrator to Dave Benda, and this motion is a ratification of the Board of Commissioners.
Support.
Motion by Inman, supported by Lemko. Further discussion? I think we already had this discussion almost. Ross?
Well, I'll take one more stab at it. I guess nobody wants to delay this for a week and, you know, gather more information or whatever.
Larry?
I will share your original thoughts, Commissioner Fleece, with Benda in terms of how he interviewed, and not knowing him personally, just knowing his reputation. I wanted to make sure that Jen drilled very deeply into the relationship he had with his the people that he worked with, the county commissioners, the county administrators, the judges, elected officials, and I wanted assurance. That was the only piece that I was really questioning, just like you had said. I wanted to make sure that I was feeling that we were doing the right thing, and when I read the responses back that Jen had brought back from the people that had worked with Dave Benda, that they all had, really good relations with him, and he had an open door policy and was really good to work with and delegated and really strong technology skills and work skills. So that, and they didn't see any problem with arrogance or anything, that he was a real sharp guy. That probably was the icing on the cake for me.
Further discussion, Larry?
Well, with the perception that Gilman and I are lame ducks,
And
I
that's
don't,
unfair.
I don't agree with that.
I don't think we all agree with that.
No, and I never made that statement either, so
I know,
just want to mention
but
that.
But I can assure you, I'll not be a lame duck until the duck's dead. But getting back to the motion at hand, and I forget who said it, maybe it was Ross, about the board standing behind one individual. And obviously, Getz, it was a 5-4 vote, and if we do the same thing with Benda,
Then we bring them both back.
it's not a good way for Benda to come in. So I guess if we made the wrong decision, we can fire him as fast as we hired him.
Right.
Jen, you'll just have to make sure the departure isn't too expensive. But anyway, I will support the motion because I think all the commissioners should support, obviously, who's going to get it.
Ross?
And just to be clear, we're really just authorizing Jen to begin the negotiation process, and nothing is final until we offer a contract and it's signed.
Right.
Okay.
That'd be fair.
Further discussion? Herb?
If we have this vote, will that take effect immediately, that she can offer the contract to him, or do we have to wait until the end of the month?
No, my motion was a ratification vote.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah.
So that we were ratifying it now,
Ratifying it
rather
now.
than waiting until the end of the month to ratify.
Right.
Then we're
But
going to
that
offer
was
the contract.
pending the outcome of
Yeah, we
Well,
subject to a
pending.
criminal,
Right.
the background check.
the rest of the background.
Yeah, I will agree to that amendment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jason?
I really don't think he's a proper fit for the county. I don't think he is, and I'll tell the county this right now. I was there at the interviews. We had the cameras rolling, go back, watch their interviews. He turns, he watches Commissioner Inman over here as if he's had communications with him.
Never talked to him.
I can read body language like that. I'll tell you what, this is a mistake. Now, my gut feeling absolutely says we shouldn't have this guy. Okay? Nowhere on my radar after those interviews. Mechanically, he's qualified. He's done the job. But he shouldn't be our administrator. And if we want to talk about it and we want to bring him back in and he can convince me otherwise, I might be so inclined. But at this point, I can tell you I'm not interested at all. And I'll continue to say so right until we hire him. If that's the case. And in the end, how well does that work out for us? Larry?
Well, I just want to clarify, Commissioner Gilman, I guess the perceived comment, I never contacted Mr. Benda, never talked to him during the interview process. I haven't spoke to him in 10 years. I never spoke to him after the interview process. Never called him. I don't have a personal relationship with him. I have no relationship with him. I'm making my judgment based on his experience level, the interview questions, and the background check.
Further comments? Rob?
I guess, Commissioner Gilman, I'd ask, you seem to be very passionate about your opinion. is there any tangible reason other than just your impression of him as a person? Is there any information we might not be privy to?
No, I don't. I think everybody's seen what I've seen. It's how I interpret it. I mean, I think that he is, like I say, mechanically qualified. He can drive the car. How good is he? You know, does he know how to read the road signs? You know, we have a pretty unique board right now, and it'll become more interesting next year, I think, and I won't be here. But I just don't see him as a fit for the community. I just don't. And frankly, I do have a slight personal objection to someone who knows only government, only the mechanics of government so much. Couldn't survive outside of it, and now is looking for a job. And I'm so offended by the story in the paper and the gall of our chairman to go ahead and presume for the 9 of us that we're going to hire this man at a particular salary, which is not exactly at the low end of the scale for somebody who's looking for a job. So I just, it's wrong all the way. If we want to sit back, I'm willing to go a week now since this other motion was turned down. But I am not going to be willing to support this right until we get there.
Larry?
Well, I just want to emphasize to Commissioner Gilman that every day we express our opinion in this boardroom, and if the press calls us, we express our personal opinions to the press on every topic that comes before the board, before, during, and after. I expressed my opinion when asked who I thought was the top candidate, and and everyone in this room is entitled to that opinion and that expression to anybody that calls you up, whether it be the member of the public or the media. So, I'm ready for a vote.
I believe we've had enough discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
No.
Fleece?
Yes.
Gilman?
Nope.
Inman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Chairman Wheelock?
Yes.
Okay, well, Mr. Chairman, what would you suggest the next step be?
My suggestion, if everyone is in agreement, that we authorize the Human Resources Director to contingent on, I'm assuming we're going to wait until the background checks are finished, and then we will authorize her to negotiate a recommended salary, or at least a recommended salary range. You know,
Do we need a motion
we've
for that?
advertised a range when we've advertised for the position, correct?
No.
Our motion already stated that, I think, wasn't it?
No.
No.
No, we
No.
should make the
Okay.
offer to Benda.
And, Sonny, to answer your question, no, the position was not advertised with a range at the board's direction. I did not advertise it with a salary range.
All right, I know we looked at a couple different things, and we talked about a range at one point. So
There is a salary range for the position, but I did not advertise it with that. But if anyone has asked me along the way, I would just say, this is the current range, but it was not advertised with that range on it.
Larry?
We'll start at 30,000.
Personally, I'm sorry, Mr. Gilman's not here because he didn't like the amount, and now that I look at it, I don't agree with it either. I think that we could start, we have to give some guidance to her. I think in all fairness, we have Dennis's contract, and there's some things that I would back down on, but, I would be happy with step 2 or step 3, given he's got, because there is, if you look at the attachment, there is a pay scale adjustment annually for the administrator. So I don't really have a preference where we start him at, if we can just get him to agree to a contract. So, I'm flexible on that.
Ross?
Since it's going to take a few more days for the background checks to be completed, wouldn't it be safe to say that at RMA next week, we could go into closed session at the end to discuss
do that.
the negotiation.
You can't not go in closed session to discuss.
Negotiation
and
strategy?
Negotiation for a county administrator's salary. I don't think so. No.
Well, maybe we should just put it on the agenda next week.
Larry?
You know, I agree with Wheelock. You got an individual looking for a job, and, you know, his resume looks good and all of that. And I don't even know if step one is low enough. I'd be satisfied with step one or lower, because once he proves himself, we can certainly reward him appropriately.
Yeah, and there
But just, you know, what I've never understood is you see administrators, and the school's famous for it, and I'll tell you a situation years ago in Light and Power. The superintendent of the field decides to retire. And at the time, he was making like $33,000. So they accept his retirement. They're looking for a new guy. They hire the new guy, and what do you think they started him at? Or advertised the starting pay at? 38. So the individual promptly went right to City Hall, and he said, "Can I reapply for my old job?" That'd be a $5,000 raise. And you look at the way things go. I don't see anything wrong, and if he can't understand, if a prospective employee can't understand, well, you gotta start maybe at the bottom, and if he's as good as you think he is, we can certainly accelerate the pay scale.
I'd like to just do a follow-up, since Commissioner Gilman was absent for a second. I spoke with Commissioner Gilman before the meeting, and I think I agree with him in terms of the comment that he made me in terms of the salary that I looked at in terms of what he, and actually, there was a misunderstanding with the write-up. He was actually at 120 with Midland when he left, not 126. But since the county administrator pay scale at the county has a six-step process, I would be happy with whatever step that we can get him to agree to, at step one, step two, whatever. And, you know, if Jen can negotiate that, that would be fine.
Jason?
Well, actually, you know, I mean, the low end of the six-step thing is 110,000, roughly 110.6 or whatever. You know, frankly, what he made before doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's what is his value to us going to be, okay? Personally, now, I think Dennis made too much. And I'm not saying he wasn't worth it. I'm just saying for this area, for the privilege of living in this area and having a high-profile position, having good benefits, and working with some really wonderful people. I'm talking about the employees, not us.
Well, that's right, you'll be
I'm glad you think that way of me, Jason.
The thing is, and if I would not have a problem starting him off below grade, because it's a new position. It's not an existing. I mean, if there was 3 administrators and there's a certain pay scale, well, okay, you gotta take that into account. There's 1 administrator's position. So when he takes over that administrator's position, it's a new position. That scale is brand new, whatever we make it. So frankly, I say you go sub $100,000, you offer a year contract, and then after that, you determine what is his worth to us. Because that's really what matters. And then we go forward from there.
Larry?
You know, I think Inman made the comment, well, step 1 or step 2, or whatever he agrees to. I disagree with that 100%. We offer him a salary. If he's not willing to take it, goodbye. We got other applicants.
Okay, well, then we need to indicate that to Jen.
Because I'm in firm agreement that maybe we need to even be lower than what this is. And we all have to answer to constituents, And I agree with Jason. You know, you take the guy that's out there working his butt off, and he's making 40 grand a year, and some guy with an education's making, you know, whatever, 100, 110 in this situation, and they're paying taxes. That don't set too well with the public. And I don't think I would vote, I voted for Benda, but I'm not gonna vote for some extravagant salary to entice him to take the job. He either wants a job or he don't want the job, and the benefits we offer are, in my opinion, pretty good too.
Jen, I guess my question is for you. How do you want to approach the negotiations of the salary for the county, the incoming county administrator?
Well, I don't think it's just a salary. I think some of you guys have touched on it. I think it's a total compensation package, and I think that there are other things with this package. Life insurance, Dennis had 3 times his salary in life insurance. That's absolutely something we can negotiate, you know, downward. He has the highest. I have 1 times my salary, so does Dean. So, you know, there are things within the contract that can be negotiated, and I think it's a total compensation package within that contract. Dennis was paying 10% of his health insurance. Same thing. You know, there are different things to look at within that, and it's a whole package, and with the salary. So I guess I would leave it there. But I'm you know, willing to, if you wanted me to start discussions with Dave Benda when his background check comes back and report back to you next week, I'm more than happy to do that and let you know where we're at.
Well, at least from my perspective, I don't believe we are in a position sitting here to even talk about what the starting point is. This is a compensation package, and she's exactly right. The benefit package, you know, I know with my employees, their wages are half of what their overall compensation is. You know, about 53% as of the end of last year for most of my employees. So the fact is that I don't want to say, okay, we're going to start at 100,000, we're going to start at 110,000, we're going to start at 80,000. My suggestion is that we simply give Jen the authorization to try to negotiate a contract. Jason?
We have oversight, and we guide policy. And when the public says, you gave them what? You know, it's going to be based on whatever she comes up with. We're going to have a say on where it starts off at. Okay, if it starts off, and I mean, we've got something already that says there's this starting point at $110,000. Well, I'm saying we could start lower as far as that part of the compensation package. As far as the rest of it and the other negotiable parts, hey, that's a great go back and forth. You know, I mean, heck, given the 20% contribution suggestion by our state government at this point, that's, you know, that's a starting place for a contribution into his own insurance package. But there is a point where we have a little bit of oversight where we start, and I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to lowball and look at another candidate. I think there's no question about it. This board is close enough in voting for either one of these gentlemen, and I'll bet you, I would bet you, one of them would be willing to come in where we want to pay.
Ross?
Could I make a suggestion? Actually, I'll make a motion that Jen bring back a proposal for a starting point to RMA next week, and that we will then pass on it, I guess, you know, item by item. Hopefully with the understanding that it is the start of negotiation and not necessarily a take it or leave it type of, you know, situation.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Okay. Motion by Richardson, supported by Inman. Further discussion? Herb?
Yeah, I guess I'm concerned about some of the conversations about that's Jen's responsibility to figure out what we're going to do. We set the salaries for all elected officials. We had a long discussion as to whether or not where it should go and why. This administrator is our employee. That person that we're going to hire, Mr. Benda, is our employee. He is employed by the county commissioners. And it's our responsibility to step up the plate and give the guidance to Jen as to where we think that salary ought to be. I have a problem in pushing all this stuff off onto our administration when this is our responsibility. That's why we're elected. We have to make those kind of decisions. And I also have a problem trying to lowball it. We want the best person, and we have to pay them a wage that's commensurate with their ability. Mr. Benda's abilities rank very high. Everybody here has said that he has the tools to be able to make the job done. Why would we lowball his salary if he's got the tools and we know he can do the job? Let's set the salary. My recommendation is you start at 120, and that's where a starting salary is, and Jen, go work with it and figure out how to make that happen. But we have to make that decision. It's our decision, not Jen's.
Ross?
And I agree with you, Herb, but I think Jen's point was that you have to look at the whole package. And maybe if she brings a proposal back, then we can fine tune it, hammer it out, whatever, and then by this time, a week from now, she'll have her starting point, which has been decided by us.
Right. We have to decide.
We have to decide.
Yeah.
She'll bring it to us, and we'll decide and say, okay, that's where you go.
I appreciate it.
And we'll see. Is that okay?
Rob?
Well, it sounds like some commissioners want a county run by the lowest bidder. You know, we could always get Benda and Gitz together and say, okay, which one of you is going to do it for less, and we'll go back and forth till we get to the lowest number. Oh, gosh.
Rob, that's called reverse bidding.
Yeah, reverse
I've been
auction.
involved with that.
We talked
It's
about doing our
ugly.
purchasing that way.
I've been involved with this. Don't go there.
I think that we've done a great job at acquiring a great HR director with a lot of experience and knowledge and insight. I think we pay her pretty good, and I think if we can get a recommendation from her, it is certainly our decision in the end, but I think we should rely on the person that spends all their time doing this. I spend my time trying to run a hardware store, you know. So yeah, I've got some HR experience because I do wear every hat in the company, but at this level, I really rely on staff for their expertise.
Good point.
Jason?
Well, I mean, just where we are in this state, we have the upper hand. We offer a lot to any prospective administrator, any prospective executive. Frankly, if we go by the concerns of lowballing, I don't want you on my negotiating team if I'm ever looking at a contract. I'm going to tell you. You start off with the reality of the situation. We have a beautiful, beautiful area. This is quality of life up here. And anybody that makes $100,000 in a total package or more in this area is living the high life. Okay? You know, these people want to live up here. Okay? Dave Benda has been successful in government. He's done well in government. He's mechanically adept. And I use that word because I think that's really what it comes down to. Okay? He's been a good budget guy, apparently down in Ingham. He's had success in Midland. And he's a great grant getter. Okay? Wonderful. In a year, you come back and you say, you know what? You're worth a raise. You're worth something. But you don't go out and throw out the highest bid up front. That's not how you negotiate, and you don't talk about it. You don't say, we're going to, and with all due respect, you don't say, oh, we're looking at $126,000.
Well, I've changed my mind.
Yeah, okay, you know.
Yeah, I didn't want to, I want to make sure you walk.
Have we beaten you up enough about that?
I really,
actually, that was a wrong number to begin with.
I agree that our human resources director is fully capable of coming up with a number, but I would also state that I think as a board, we should encourage her to start at a point which is more commensurate with the immediate ability to get them. I think we get them cheap right now.
Ross?
I was just going to say, with all due respect, Jason, I think if you can save all that for next week, then, we'll be ready to go. And I think I have the idea that Jen probably senses that we don't want to spend a lot of money here if we can avoid it, so, anyway.
Dick?
I would like to take this opportunity to publicly thank Dennis, the lawyer, for causing all this.
All right, are there any other comments? Yes. Sure, come on up.
Dick. Wow. Andy Merrick, 2875 East Railroad Avenue, Interlochen, Michigan. One of the concerns I have about going to Jen and saying, give us a package to start with, is who does she work for? Is she going to be working for the administrator? There's some of the county government I'm still a little confused on. And if she reports to the administrator and she sets his salary, that's kind of a concern to me. I trust Jen completely. I think she does a great job. But that puts her in a hard position, I think, where she's got to set her boss's salary. I'd love to be able to set my boss's salary, but I can't. We've got several qualified candidates. I don't think we need to throw the largest amount of money we can to get the person who we elect, or who you guys chose today, when there's someone else who is right up there with them. Unfortunately, I didn't watch the interviews. I don't know the whole story. I don't know everything behind it. But Northern Michigan is a good paycheck in and of itself, the area that we have. It's a beautiful area. We got great citizens. I agree with Mr. Gilman at one point. That's part of the compensation that a lot of people don't look at, but yet they kind of do. Thank you.
Okay, I guess the point about it is, that's what HR directors do. We can talk about, well, she's setting her boss's salary, but the fact is, that's what we pay her for, is to negotiate the contract. I don't think if he was making personally, if he was making $120,000 in Midland, he was at the top of his learning curve in Midland. He's not going to come in the door here at the top of the learning curve, so therefore, I want to bring that number down a little bit. But I'm very confident that Jen's going to come to us with a compensation package that includes salary, vacations, insurances, benefits, that we're all going to have a discussion on. And that's next week's discussion. I certainly believe that's the right thing to do. But, one thing, we all sit here and we talk about lowball. Dean and I sat on a little thing called the Land Bank Authority, and we hear from the Housing Trust Fund that 80% of the mean income in Grand Traverse County is $58,000. That means the average salary in Grand Traverse County is about $76,000 to $78,000 a year. That's the average mean salary in Grand Traverse County. Now, I'm not sure how many of us sitting in this room even come close to that. I'm not sure some of us can probably qualify for that low-income housing that we talk about. But the fact is, all of the statistics will tell you, from Mishta all the way down through, that the average salary of a person in Grand Traverse County is about $76,000.
I think that's high.
Is that counting their food stamps?
I'm not sure about their food stamps, but the fact is, it's real. It comes on everything that comes from the Housing Commission. Everything that comes from Michigan. 80% of the median income in Grand Traverse County is $58,000 a year. And that's what it's based on to qualify for MISTA funding for low-income housing. Larry?
Well, I agree with the concept of what's being discussed here, that, Dave would have a learning curve for a while in terms of the operation, and getting to know everybody and getting out to the community. And since, he would be potentially here in June, we would have an evaluation at the end of the year. That would be December, so that'd be 6 months. And Jen has the established salary levels for county administrators in our population market. And, as far as I'm concerned, he could just get the same benefit structure that any other employee gets here, and it could be just as simple as that. So, I would rely on her recommendation on a salary and the compensation, and we could just look at it and go from there.
Ross?
Not to correct you, Sonny, but that's median family income. That's a small difference.
Yeah.
Could be.
Household.
It makes me feel better.
That's okay.
That's two incomes.
Can we vote?
It's still a huge figure.
Can we vote
All
on the
right, we
motion?
have a motion by Richardson, supported by Inman, to authorize the HR director to bring us back a recommended compensation package at the RMA meeting next week. No further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Okay, the
Sheriff's
with that,
proclamation.
we have no unfinished business. I will circulate a copy of a proclamation declaring the week of May 13th as National Police Week, and would ask for a motion to authorize the chairman sign this proclamation.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Limcool, supported by Henschel, to approve the proclamation declaring the week of May 13th through the 19th National Police Week. Herb?
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that during the Rotary Show this last week, each night we celebrated heroes, and each night was a separate hero from our police and fire, emergency rescue, and our dispatch. So each night there was a different group of people that were recognized, and I must say that they are our heroes. Without them in our community, we wouldn't have the community that we have, and we have some very committed, very talented people that are part of our community. And I personally would like to say thanks to our heroes. And this is a great proclamation to recognize our police, but it also, we need to recognize that all the organizations that are part of the emergency organizations need to be recognized as heroes for our community. Thank you.
Which was my night.
We have a motion by Limcool, supported by Henschel. Because this is a proclamation, I'm going to ask Jackie to do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Fleece?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Chairman Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. And that also ratifies the chairman's signature on the proclamation.
Right.
All right, this is the second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to note that I've been really happy to see Mr. Merrick in the audience nearly every single commission meeting that we've had, both in the committees of the whole. And I'd just like to recognize that he's been here consistently for nearly a year now, it seems. So anyhow, I just wanted to point that out.
Maybe he's like us and he doesn't have a real life.
He does it for the laughs.
Chris?
And I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank the American for putting up, donating rooms for
We did
American.
send a letter that, thank you.
for
Good
the
point.
candidates that came in. I just think that was extremely generous and very civic-minded.
Brooms, I thought she said brooms.
Are we on to other reports?
We're going to finish up public
Okay.
comment. If there's no public comment, commissioner committee reports. Herb?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that it's interesting, the insert in the business news this month talks about the Village of Grand Traverse Commons. It's got a great historical review of how it got to where it is today. They are celebrating their 10th anniversary of the time when they gave $1 to take over that whole complex and then had to put a new roof on that was over $1 million. And everything that Ray has promised our community, we received, and then some. And I just want to say thanks to Ray and his family for taking the initiative and going into debt majorly, I'm sure, to provide a really quality place in our community. The other thing I'd like to state is tonight is the Athena Award, and Renee McCauley from Kalkaska County is receiving that award, and I just want to congratulate her for her work with women in our businesses and helping people in our community to become more successful, and particularly part of the Poverty Reduction Initiative.
Other comments? Jason?
I'd just like to congratulate the Rotary for their successful event recently, and to particularly congratulate Commissioner Lemkool on being a part of the internet forever as Tinkerbell.
If you want pictures, I
We
do
need
have
pictures.
one. I do have one.
I think the pictures
Yeah,
are
we
scary.
want it on
so-
YouTube.
All right.
No.
Any other comments, Larry?
On our desk tonight, at least on mine, I presume on everybody else's, was a letter of resignation from Deputy Todd Heller.
Oh, yeah.
And Todd's been with the department for 17 years. He's a very skilled officer. He's been involved in several close calls, as he states in his letter. In fact, the proclamation we did on National Police Week earlier this evening, May 13th, or May 12th of 1998, the day Finch got shot, Sergeant Finch, and the 13th, he died on the 13th. May 15th's always been National Police Week. But that particular day, Todd happened to be working. He was right just off the porch, and Finch, after he'd been severely shot, looked at Todd and said, "Todd, I don't want to die here. Get me off this porch."
Yeah, I remember that.
And Todd took it upon himself. He was a very young officer at that time, and he took and crawled up on that porch, and John Clark, the perpetrator, could have very well shot him too if he'd have wanted, but Todd drug Finch off the porch, and Todd, in my opinion, is a true hero. He's a real cop. He's given a lot to this community, and I certainly would wish him well in his new endeavor. He's accepted a job in Maryland, starts May 21st, and I'm really sorry to see him go. I think down at our employee breakfast this morning, or this year, I spoke down there about Todd, and at the time we were interviewing for city reserves, and I happened to be the captain, and we had 4 sergeants, and the sergeant would go out and get the next victim, if you will, and bring them in, and we'd set them at the end of the table and literally grill them, you know. And after you've been on a job a while, you know, you begin to think maybe it's time to retire. And they brought in this young guy, and I looked at his resume, and it was Todd Heller. And I said, "Mr. Heller, do you know Harry Heller?" He said, "Sure, that's my grandpa." And I had worked with his grandpa for many years, and so the thought started to cross my mind, maybe I've been here too many years. But that's how I met Todd. He's a fine individual. It's a loss to this community. It really is, him and his family. So, but I understand.
I just want to take a quick second to thank the commission for last week at our meeting. We had some business to take care of, and you accommodated Commissioner Lemkool and myself to get out of here early.
Thank you.
Get the important business handled. As a result, 4 nights of the Rotary Show, gross receipts, we raised, before expenses, close to, in the neighborhood of $70,000 for local charities. And I sit on the committee that grants this money back into the community, and it goes to things like a copy machine for a small nonprofit that maybe just needs a hand, or a Boy Scout troop that needs a trailer. Just little things that are unmet needs in the community that we can help those kind of organizations keep going and doing a good job in our community, and it's, we really appreciate that.
Good. Any other comments? I have one. I was very pleased to get notice last week that the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality approved the Solid Waste Plan Amendment 2011-2. Very, very positive comments about our changes to the ordinance, or the amendment to the solid waste plan. Resource recovery should, barring complications, should pass the revised ordinance 17 tomorrow night. If we can get it passed through them tomorrow night, I will make sure it's on your agenda for resource recovery next week. Dean, you had mentioned something earlier that you wanted to do.
Yeah, I wanted to briefly mention that I have received 2 calls from the Department of Treasury. They are looking at the 2% funding allocation. They have actually written a letter to the Grand Traverse Band regarding the distribution of those funds, and they have until the end of May to respond. There could be some concern over how they're distributing those funds, and the impact that it has is unknown at this point, because they do have until the end of May to respond to that audit finding. This is the result of a Department of Treasury audit that's under process, or actually in process right now. The issue for us, local audit and finance, has also gotten wind that we could potentially not be, when we receive the funds and then pass them on to the ultimate recipient of those funds, Treasury, or the local audit and finance, also has an issue with that. I'm not sure how this is going to be resolved. I will try to obtain a letter that went to the Grand Traverse Band so we can get a sense for where this might go. But I know that we're at the end of this month, early June, we would be getting the request for those funds to be passed on. And
Jason?
And having seen those pass-throughs, for example, Grand Traverse County has received for organizations that I don't think we should support, but we've received and handled we've handled the money for that 2% pass-through, and it's not something that we as a board really have any opportunity to review. It just kind of comes through finance, and we're fiduciarily managing it through. So I welcome the opportunity to say, look, if you want to give it in your own name, you give it in your own name to the community or to those people, but not in our name to those agencies that we may or may not agree with.
because I haven't seen anything in writing from the state on this matter, I want to be clear that in my mind or opinion there are 2 issues. One is their distribution of the funds, whether or not they're in accordance with the agreement. And then the second issue is whether we as a county or any local unit of government can receive those funds. Once we receive the funds, they're technically supposed to be for a public purpose, and then whether it's appropriate to pass them through. Those are the 2 issues.
Well, just maybe just kind of, this is it's probably been coming for a long time, and it's probably more than anything else, it's a prerequisite with what will come with the compact with the Grand Traverse Band in 2013. Because as you may remember, the compact between the state of Michigan and the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians is different than any other compact in the state of Michigan.
Right.
It gave sole discretion for the distribution of the 2% money to the tribe. All right, but it required that the applications pass through a governmental entity, which never quite made a whole lot of sense in my world, and I've complained about it quite regularly and quite loudly for a long time. But what has happened along the way is the band came to Grand Traverse County and said, okay, we will give you a criteria by which to at least have something to say about it. But coming with that was the requirement that we were the fiduciary agent, and we had to take care of the tracking of the money to make sure that it was properly spent and allocated for. And, I don't know that any of us, Dean included, wanted any desire to that. But that's the way it's been the last 2 years, right, Dean? 2 years or 3 years?
At least 2, it could be 3.
Either the last 2 or 3 years, the checks have come to Grand Traverse County, and then we had to distribute them. Before that, we just passed the applications through, and then the Grand Traverse Band entered a check or issued a check to Trigger Boxing or Red Cross or whoever it was. But that hasn't been the way it's happened for the last 2 or 3 years. The money has come to us, and we've had to be the fiduciary for it. And I think that's where the local audit question comes.
Correct.
Because we have no way of knowing how these people spent their money. They tell us they spent it on what they made the application to. So that's where the change has come, and it truly hasn't only happened in the last couple of years. But I absolutely believe it's a prerequisite to a new compact that we issued in 2013.
2013.
Just one last comment on this, and I want to make this point very, very clear. You know, we look at this 2%. 2% is really cheap. I mean, if you think about it. Can you imagine, and I just want to make this one point, can you imagine if you were a fertilizer company and instead of paying taxes, you could take 2% of your profits and just give them to whatever interest you have, like maybe a flour company. I'm just saying, you know.
Well, and remember, it is not 2% of their total revenue.
Just
it is 2% of the
electronic,
Just gaming.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the machines.
Which is most of it now anyway. It really is.
If you noticed at first public comment tonight, Heidi, the Deputy Finance Director, is running for treasurer, and I was really dismayed to see Dean Bott withdraw his candidacy from that, which he did for personal reasons, and I understand that, but I thought maybe the public might wonder why his assistant was running when he was running.
Okay. Are there any other comments, announcements? We have no purpose for closed session. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.